Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all on behalf of Team Avatar and my avatar to the day 15 of Diversity Mahotsav 2022. I'm Janani Sampath and I will be your host for today's evening. Before we begin, here are a few hygiene checks for a seamless virtual experience. Please close all other applications on your computer and log out from your organization's VPN to conserve internet bandwidth. We would like to thank our partners, featured partners Kellogg Brown and Root Engineering and Construction India Private Limited and Saint Gobain India Private Limited. Our social media hashtags are hashtag Diversity Mahotsav 2022 and hashtag Celebrating Diversity. Do post your experience at Diversity Mahotsav on your SM handles using these hashtags. I would also like to inform you that all the Diversity Mahotsav episodes are being live streamed on our YouTube channel. Scan the QR code seen on your mobiles or laptops or computers to watch the Diversity Mahotsav live on YouTube. Alternatively, you can go to the link that is visible on the screen, or you can also use the link that we have posted on the chat box. Celebrating diversity in the workplace should be about bringing the workforce together in a natural way, where they can celebrate, engage, and champion each other's uniqueness. Diversity in the workplace is also about empowering employees by respecting and embracing what makes them different in all the ways. It means appreciating and understanding one another by truly embracing the differences. Avatar, a pioneer in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion, had the vision to see more women participate in the workforce. While we have expanded our impact across diversity stands to cover people with special needs, disabilities, LGBTQ, to name a few, we have also recognized the need to mainstream discussions around diversity and inclusion. Let's listen to the founder, Dr. Soundarya Rajesh, on the vision of My Avatar.
I am delighted to share that My Avatar is India's first and only portal to celebrate diversity. This means that we are a portal that addresses ourselves to different diversity talent pools, different underrepresented groups of talent like women, second career women, members of the LGBTQ community, persons with disability, veterans, and the silver generation. And what do we do at myavatar.com? First of all, we provide jobs from a whole host of organizations that are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also create experiences and opportunities for people to come in touch with each other, to form communities, and finally, we also offer skilling programs to ensure that every individual who registers to myavatar.com has the opportunity to reach the fullest of their potential.
Diversity Mahotsav, the month-long celebration by myavatar.com. Avatar's number one diversity hiring portal is a one of its kind initiative. It aims to look for multi-pronged strategies to explore the world of opportunities out there for diverse groups. Diverse in its approach, with experiential sessions, success stories, and skill building workshops, it recognizes that one size doesn't fit all and that there is a need for different levels of intervention. And with the second successive edition of Diversity Mahotsav, we hope that we have expanded our impact in celebrating your diversity. I, Janani Sampath, once again welcome you all on behalf of Team Avatar, India's premier diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions firm, and myavatar.com, India's only diversity hiring portal, to the Diversity Mahotsav. Let's celebrate ourselves. Today is the penultimate day of Diversity Mahotsav 2022, and we would like to go for the last leg on a high with a topic that is sure to strike a chord with all of you out there. There is this interesting story that I came across on a website recently, and it spoke about how behind curtain auditions improve the number of women performing in an orchestra in the United States. This was in the 70s when initially only 5% of women played the violin in these orchestras. But when they had the auditions behind a curtain, revealing the person playing the number of these women actually increased in the orchestras. Amazing, isn't it? What does it indicate? It talks about unconscious gender bias. Today, while we look for improving women's workforce participation, this is particularly a topic that can't be stressed enough. And to throw light on it, we have Priya Vaidyanathan, Program Manager, Customer Connect Head, IT, Saint Gobain India Private Limited. She has 20 plus years of experience in manufacturing industry, enabling business by providing innovative and customer oriented digital solutions. Priya began her stint with Saint Gobain in 2021 as the head of home and hospitality business responsible for digitalizing end-to-end value chain of the business operations. She also leads the digital customer experience and employee experience platforms for regional businesses in India, primarily focusing on sales and marketing and HR operations. Her previous stints include Caterpillar India Private Limited, where she handled key digital as well as business transformations for Caterpillar India, playing various roles from various locations like Chennai, Tiruvallur, Hosur, and Bangalore. She was also with Valio India Private Limited as Regional Information Systems Manager, and she was responsible for deployment and support to end-to-end digital solutions, specifically Industry 4 solution across all India and ASEAN manufacturing plants. Let me remind you as we welcome her that you can share your questions in the chat window or in the Q&A box for the speaker to address after the workshop or while the workshop is underway. With that, a very warm welcome to you, Priya. Over to you for the DIY workshop on unconscious gender bias.
Thank you, Janani, so much for the wonderful introduction. I will go ahead and share my screen. Just let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really pleased to be part of this curious audience, I would say. I would first like to begin the session with a thank you to the management of Saint Gobain as well as Avatar, who has given me this opportunity to be in front of you to share the thoughts related to unconscious gender bias. And I would say there wouldn't be a real good time for me to talk about this unconscious gender bias because we at Saint Gobain, India, have done several gender sensitization initiatives this year as part of our overall gender diversity transformation initiative or journey, I would say. So I would like to keep this session a little light and simple, where I would talk about what is unconscious bias and types of common unconscious bias that we experience on a day-to-day basis at a very high level, and then deep dive into the gender bias as such, why it is actually important, and how to actually overcome the gender bias, unconscious gender bias, though we will not be in a position to 100% avoid it in current scenario. So with this, I want to start off with an interesting revelation in terms of how our brain is equipped in terms of processing unconscious bias. So I would say, just a minute, I think you're, let me move this here. Okay. So with regard to our human brain, it's an interesting fact that it actually processes more than 11 million pieces of information per second, which is unconscious, I would say. And versus it can process only 40 pieces of information per second consciously. So we clearly see that the environment that we live, we cannot avoid unconscious biases. So we have to stay and we have to live in a world of unconscious bias. So unconscious bias, what it actually means, it refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that we experience that affects our views, our actions, and our decision-making ability. So with that, we will quickly look at what are the types of unconscious bias that we experience in day-to-day life. The first and foremost is important one, which we will take a deep dive later, is gender bias. which is nothing but a very stereotype belief about someone only based on gender. So what kind of opinion or belief that we have on a person that or a thing based on gender. And conformity bias. Let's say if we have a group of individuals talking about a particular subject or someone and form a judgment about someone or somebody, and if a person goes along with everybody, irrespective of what he or she feels, that's basically a conformity bias, just to make sure that the person aligns with the group of people and shies away from his or her own judgment is conformity bias. And then affinity bias actually happens when a person favors another person because they share similarity, they come from the same place, or similar religion or origin or their own experiences, what they actually see themselves in the other person. That's affinity bias. And then confirmation bias is something that happens when you form an opinion or a judgment about something or a person, and you start searching for justifying yourselves for the evidences that would confirm your judgment. So that's called confirmation bias. So now that we have seen what type of unconscious bias exists, I will move on to the gender bias little deeper. And again, I would like to start off with a revelation from an interesting study that was conducted again about male versus female brain. And I'm sure most of you would know that our brain is composed of gray matter, which forms the outer layer, and a white matter, which is inside the inner layer, with a lot of connections in between. So the study that was conducted between male and female brains actually stated that there is extensive overlap between a male and a female brain and the connections. What does it actually infer? How do we interpret this? Is God has made us, there is hardly any difference between a male and a female brain when we are born and we develop. There is very hardly subtle differences, is what it says. So which means there is no difference when we are born to our brains. It is actually how we think and how we create bias. So which means it is under our control, is what I want to say. So with regard to work, I would like to share some of the experiences that today's women go through at workplace, which I'm sure many of you who are listening to this will also have gone through this at some point of time. So women are perceived as not suitable for very unconventional roles. When I say unconventional roles, I mean if you look at a cab driver as a woman, so we look at it very strangely, right? Pilots. And then if you look at women in shop floor, though it is becoming more common nowadays, it's still considered as unconventional role. And then women in a real estate or in a detective agency, right? So those are actually considered as some unconventional roles at work. And this is an interesting topic of hiring women in a family way. This has happened to me a few times. In the past, I've had instances where my team would come back and ask me, Priya, you know what? I came across a person whom we hired, whom we interviewed for our team. She's very good. She's very much suitable for our team. However, I want to just check with you. She's on family way. Do you think we should go ahead and hire her? The answer from my side would always be yes, provided the person has suitable skills for our role. So even if I'm at least happy that this kind of questioning happens and we are able to turn this around. But most of the cases, I'm sure many of you here would appreciate that some of those hiring decisions doesn't come up to the stage. They would be denied of the opportunity even during the resume selection process or even during the initial phases of interview, which is an irony that we have to accept. And assumptions and decision are made on behalf of women. So this is again a very interesting one, I would say. This is also, I've experienced this as well. So in terms of assumptions and decision making, I would say where men assume that it is very harder for women to take certain roles. Sometimes it could be because of real concern, just like our parents are very concerned about kids, right? So they make decisions on behalf of us. And sometimes it could be clearly to avoid the opportunity, thereby hindering the career progression. So without even checking whether the female is really interested to make that choice, and they would be force fitted in a role, and most of the women wouldn't even know that there is a choice existed and decision was made on, what to say, somebody has made the decision for them. So which is another example of a gender bias and experience that we go through at work. And when it comes to role assignments, ratings, promotions that happens during and post maternity, there's a lot of bias exist around these areas. And when it comes to job description, this is again most of you would be able to relate to, right? So the job descriptions that we see are gender biased. So I've seen this also what to say as a job description, which actually surprised me. Unfailing availability and total geographical mobility, which is clearly not a gender neutral job description, I would say. So which is not favoring women here. And when it comes to productivity of women, there is always question when they come back from the maternity break. Would they be able to perform at the same level? Would my productivity will go low? Will my deliverable happen on time? So this lot of questions happen in terms of productivity. And pay parity is something that exists. I have some interesting facts that I would like to share with all of you as well later in my presentation. And low representation of women in key industries like manufacturing industry or aviation or even resource industries, there's low representation still exists. And another thing is attractiveness generally is seen as incompatible with intelligence or competence. I've seen this happen as well. And okay, so this is again one more interesting topic. So if an employee who's a male who has very ambitious goals, he's often perceived as very assertive, okay, by the co-employees. Whereas when a woman has ambitious goals, they would be often perceived as aggressive. Okay, so this is the kind of, at least some of the experiences, not all, I have shared in terms of gender bias. Okay, when it moves to the home or society, it doesn't get better at all. It becomes worse. Okay, it starts, the bias even starts before a child is born, I would say. Okay, so we would start looking, I'm sure many of you would be able to appreciate that by looking at the size and bump, size and shape of the bump, we start guessing, oh, it's a male baby, okay, it's a female baby. And in terms of after the child is born, when we look at the speech, okay, so we often tend to say the girls speak much early and boys speak much late, and we be concerned if we will be concerned if it happens the other way around. And we often associate even the colors, okay, pink is to pink is to girl and blue is to boy. And when it comes to play experiences, right, we like if the boys actually play with blocks, cars, and other toys, whereas we often associate girls with dolls. And when it comes to sports, okay, it doesn't stop there. When it comes to sports, okay, we have girl sport, we have boy sport, and even the e-commerce sites have added fuel to the fire. I would say there are branded items which says boys and girls, and we as parents ourselves will rarely reverse the choices. Okay, there. And when it comes to boys, we often associate them with STEM, and when it comes to girls, hospitality, right? And we also inherently think that we are proud when somebody says your boy is boisterous, okay? And we often want girls to be gentle and not the other way around. And when it comes to adults, also we want male to be career oriented versus women to stay at home and take care of everybody. And we do not mind if men is violent, okay? And if it is the other way around, we are concerned. And this is again a typical one that happens in pretty much all families when it comes to fertility. Okay, the first question or the perception will be it is women, because of women, right? And uncommon professions, we do not see more of women politicians, though there are pockets of excellence, I would say. So we are still not prominent there in terms of politics, sports. So these are basically the gender bias or the examples of bias that exist at work, at home, as well as our society. So I hope with this, I'm sure all of you would be able to understand that the bias is kind of deep rooted and it is very important to address. And this clearly leads me to the next section, why it is important to address gender bias. And as I said earlier, I would like to take a pause here to first talk about the state of gender bias in India. Some interesting facts in front of you. As per the Global Gender Gap Index report that was published by World Economic Forum, India really ranks very poorly, as you see here, 111 out of 153 countries that participated, with a score of 0.7 out of a 1, which is basically measured on 4 different dimensions. This index is measured on 4 different dimensions. One is economic participation and opportunity given to women, educational attainment, health and survival, and the political empowerment that happens. So these are the 4 indices or 4, I would say 4 dimensions where it is actually measured. So this is how we globally stand, our image of India in terms of gender gap. And then when we move on to the education as such, we see 31% of engineering degrees are borne by women as per the Indian HRD industry. Though it is a 2019 data, there is not much that has changed in the last few years. And out of the 31, I would say only 15% of the working engineers are women. So the national unemployment rate for women is about 40% as per 2020 data. And now moving on from education to the workforce. Only 26% of the total India's workforce is women. And out of this 26% of women who are employed, 73% of them actually say that they have faced discrimination at work due to household responsibilities or disparities around equal pay or equal work, which is not a good number. And only 27% of the working women feel that they have been given leadership roles in the middle management, or they have reached the middle management position. And if you see, the percentage still dips further at senior levels with only 21% of women representation. And in terms of pay parity, women continue to earn 20% lower than their male counterparts. And when it comes to senior executives as such, women earn 15% lower than their male counterparts. So if you look at this, is I would say it's very a clear indicator, and it leads me to say that it is important for us to address this unconscious gender bias. So now that we know very clearly why to address the gender bias, it becomes easy for us to actually summarize the benefits if we do it right. Okay, at work or at home or at society, what are going to be the benefits for us? So obviously at workplace, we will have a secure big talent pool, which is in high demand, I would say nowadays. And improved staff retention, productivity will be high, helping women to advance to leadership positions, and we will avoid expensive mistakes, and organization reputation as such will go up. And that's why we see a lot of companies really focusing on gender diversity nowadays. And when it comes to home or society, obviously the economic prosperity will improve as a whole for the company. And at home, we will be able to bring up unbiased next generation, and we'll be able to prevent violence against women and girls, which we see very often, and then safe and healthier environment overall. Okay. So with that, I move on to a very difficult part. So this is easy, right? So to understand what bias is, what are the types of bias, what are the examples of it, and why we need to address it. Now comes the very difficult part, how to address it in terms of at work, how do we address, at home or society, what are the things that we could do to address. So when it comes to workplace, it is very important that before I begin, I would like to actually say, see, addressing gender bias is not something that we tick off as one-off policy, one-off action. Okay, done, dusted, close it. So it is actually a journey, I would say, that every organization should be ready to take if we need to really bring in gender bias, unconscious gender bias under control. So it is actually systemic and cannot be solved quickly. So it is a journey and a comprehensive approach that an organization should take, and it is a collective responsibility with clear accountability, not just on HR, but also on the business, I would say. So the first step I think we should all consider is to basically sensitize everyone in the organization about the gender bias. Could be by means of training, workshops. You create that awareness. And when you do such trainings or awareness, we should really reflect everyday or day-to-day work scenarios, and instead of just addressing only the extreme cases or scenarios. So if you have a traditional training session which focuses only on extreme scenarios or cases in terms of abusers or harassment, what really happens is it gives employees easy way out. I don't do that. So they can do it and move away. But that's not what these training and awareness should address. It should actually address the workplace day-to-day scenarios. So now that you have finished training and awareness, next is to act, right? So acting is difficult. There are several steps that you could take to basically do the acting part. So every one of us actually should feel that they have the power to make the change. So only if you really feel that there is a need to change, you will even think of changing. So we have to get into the mode of overcoming the denial. So we shouldn't deny that there is no problem, why there is a need to change. So we need to think that we need to stress that everybody holds the power and we need to change. So we could showcase some biased behaviors that happens in workplace, and we could provide examples how to change those behaviors, and we could break some stereotypes. And then you can create an environment of empathy by offering opportunities to by taking others' perspectives. We can actually have some small group discussions to talk about scenarios and how do we empathize, and also encourage interactions among diverse group of people. We can expand some circles if you already have, expand inner circles. We can nurture curiosity of people by listening to external speakers and learning external perspectives as well. And then we can urge employees to take or track their interactions to see how they are progressing in terms of contributing to a gender neutral bias environment, I would say. And then we could encourage good practices and continuous learning by means of committing to improvement. And we could also look at finding a mentor and solicit feedback to see how you are changing and track the improvement on the same. As an organization, it's also important to set and execute broader strategy if we really need to see a broader impact. And by building the foundations right, measuring the effectiveness of training, nudging people to make better decisions, and reviewing and rethinking of the policies that contribute to having a bias-free environment would actually help. And then there could be assessments that could be done through, I would say, perception surveys. So some of the questions that we could actually ask during the perception surveys to the employees are: have you witnessed any change in terms of unconscious bias? How did it make you feel when you went through that kind of a scenario? What did you do to react to it? What was the outcome? What needs to change? What can be done more at an individual level as well as organizational level to bring in that kind of a change? How inclusive are we at our company? What more we could do? Okay, who has inspired you? So these are some of the questions that we could actually use as part of the perception surveys and start making incremental progress. As I said, it's a journey. So in terms of the other thing that we could look at is having any internal or external communications that we do, we take utmost care to ensure that we use gender bias language. And in terms of gap assessment, there's a lot could be done and actions could be taken in terms of hiring, in terms of performance evaluation to see where we are, in terms of pay, career advancements, mentoring and professional development between a male and a female. So assess the gaps and take solid actions and move forward. And in terms of hiring, I've seen some of the companies where they look at eliminating the personal information when it comes to resume sourcing to eliminate that bias. and have recruitment bias training, have diverse group of interview panelists to help also. And when it comes to performance appraisals, I've heard that some of the initiatives can be taken, I've seen some initiatives can be taken around removing the self-assessment, because women are generally, what to say, when they do an assessment for themselves, they try to assess themselves low most of the times. So that's something that we could also, companies can look at removing the self-assessment part when it comes to performance appraisal. So these are some of the actions that we could take to address, I would say, not completely remove, but at least overcome gender bias at workplace. When it comes to home and society, it is, I would say, it's very, very important. Okay, it starts with us. So as a famous saying goes, charity begins at home, right? So we can do several things, in fact, to bring gender bias changes to the younger generation. So we can fight stereotypes, no more girl job versus boy job, okay? And no more girl sport versus boy sport. This is something that we could do, and try to use gender neutral languages to our kids, call police officer instead of policemen, similar to that, and walk the talk. So people are, kids are extremely smart, so they actually look at how we walk the talk and try to learn from us. And try to embrace diverse role models, accept it as part of our life, and discuss with kids. And when it comes to government as well, I would say off late there has been a lot of initiatives, and they are serious about this, and have launched several initiatives to reduce the gender bias and improve the women's status when it comes to economic participation, opportunity for women, and in terms of health, survival, education, and also political participation. If I'm not wrong, there are about 33% of seats reserved for women in terms of encouraging their participation in politics. So these are the actions that I would say that we could take in terms of workplace, home, and society. So I come to the end of the session. Overall, if you ask me, I'm really excited to see the upcoming decades are going to be pretty exciting for women. Okay. I see all the stars have started coming together for us to come together and make a difference. I'm pretty excited to witness this upcoming change. I'm sure all of you do as well. So since I come to the end of this session, I hope it was relevant and good use of your time. I would like to thank Sengoben again, and Avatar also, Lakshmi and Janani, to have given this opportunity. And very importantly, I would say all the audience who've been listening patiently for the last few minutes. I'm going to leave you all with a very thoughtful video. I'm sure there will be some questions, I believe. If yes, I will take it. But I'm going to leave you all with a very thoughtful video, short video. Request you to be with me for one more minute, please. Lakshmi or Janani, would you help me by playing that video?
As a girl, I'm expected to be your little princess. As a boy, I'm expected to be your hero. I'm supposed to play with dolls and look pretty. I'm supposed to play sports and act tough. Crying makes people think I'm hormonal. Crying makes people think I'm weak. If I spend more time at work than at home, I lack devotion. If I spend more time at home than at work, I lack devotion. People will question my sexuality if I choose to join the army. People will question my sexuality if I choose to be a nurse. I'm expected to define myself as a boy or as a girl.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priya. That was a beautiful video to end this very, very thought provoking and a very insightful session that you just conducted, the DIY workshop on unconscious gender bias. And thanks for so beautifully taking us through this long and winding terrain of gender bias, how it begins, and that never ending journey of gender bias, and how it seeps into all the facets of our lives. Like you said, very interestingly, between in during the workshop, about how it is not like you do one thing and it ends, or you do one thing and you have addressed it. It has to be addressed every day in all its manifestations. However you see, it has to be addressed, and there is no end to addressing it. You can't say, oh yeah, we have done this, we have done the conditioning, we have reconditioned people, and everybody is going to think, that and so many factors that actually play a very important role in conditioning, and ending up with these biases that people carry about gender and women themselves, and of course the opposite genders too. So that was a fascinating workshop. I'm sure it had a lot of takeaways for everybody. And thanks for that beautiful and a very moving video, very short one but a very very moving one. And so I'm sure there are some questions from the audience's end. We would like to take some, and yes, may I read one which is already here?
Sure.
So this is for you. Have you, as a women professional, been treated differently by your male counterparts at your workplace? And how did you handle the situation? I mean, who else can answer it better from somebody who has zipped through the male bastions? Please, yes, Priya, that question is for you.
Okay. There are few occasions, but I would like to start with what immediately comes to my mind. This was about 20 years ago, more than 20 years, slightly more than 20 years, when I joined as a GET at Caterpillar. So I was there for actually 2-3 months doing programming, and post that, I had an employee who resigned. So I was not asked, I was actually put into infrastructure kind of a role. So I was what to say, my colleagues as well as my friends who are male, I would say, they said, is it really something that that women do? Why do you want to take up this infrastructure kind of a role? So you could easily refuse. This is not a, what to say, women would like to be in that kind of a role. Okay, so this is something that I've first experienced. Okay, so I was put into the role, which is good, but it was not by, what to say, that there was actually not a big thought process. There's nobody else, so I was put into the role. That's all. However, yes, when it comes to my peers, which also included male colleagues, and when it came to my friends who were in different companies doing different roles, they said, I'm what I say, I'm taking up something which is completely unusual, okay, or unconventional. So which I had to explain. I like it. I do it. It's not difficult for us to climb up ladders. It's not difficult for us to be in the shop floor. It's you have a purpose and follow your passion, is what I would say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Priya. So here is another question from one of our attendees. Beauty bias in the context of women. What are some possible solutions to bust this bias? A very pertinent question out there.
Okay. So in terms of beauty bias, I would say when it comes to work, you have to follow professional dressing ethics. That's all. Okay. And you be who you are. And as long as we are following the guidelines or the what I say, the work ethics, I think we should not really ponder about, okay, how others feel about me. As long as you're professionally dressed and you come across professionally, there is no need for us to please everybody or think about what others would think. And as long as you're satisfied that you're doing the right thing and dressed appropriately, or conducting yourself in a professional way, I at least there's no need to worry about anything else.
Awesome. And then here is another question. You spoke about how some of the best practices, about some best practices. What do you have to give us pointers to those aspiring women professionals to sort of do it themselves to avoid gender bias coming into play in their professional journeys? So how can women actually work towards alleviating gender bias and its impact in their professional journey?
See, when it comes to women, I feel we have to play a lot of, what I say, part as well. So I at least taking my example, what I have done, okay, is whenever I get into a role. Nowadays, I think we speak about it a lot, bringing a lot more women, okay, talking or removing biases and all that. But we should start from us, right? So we should create more opportunities for women and speak about the biases openly. And even during meetings, when you see that, okay, you see biases or discussions that are leading to biases, you should be able to speak up openly, addressing that. And as you grow up in the value chain, as I said, when it comes to hiring, I've had my own team coming and asking about, okay, should we really hire when somebody is going through is in a family way. So when we grow up in the value chain within the organization, I think it's important for us also to influence those hiring decisions and walk the talk also. So you show how you can make a difference. I would say in terms of hiring or even in terms of setting up policies. Okay, you can provide your opinion in terms of how gender neutral things should be. And if you come across any instances where women is going through this, we can set up, as I mentioned, we can have small forums. And there are a lot of initiatives in terms of Women Initiative Network across different organizations. So Women Initiative Networks can be formed and it can be discussed. And we can have champions championing each of those small focus group discussions, take insights. And as I said, it's a journey. It cannot happen all of a sudden, or it is not a change that happens in a flip of a button. So it has to be a journey. One is having policies in place, first acknowledging that there is a bias, okay, and coming as a group, okay, in terms of making a difference. And when we move to a position where we can recruit employees, okay, and also providing professional development, we should start doing that, is what I would say. So as a working women, so we should start from us and see what are the opportunities in front of us in removing some of the biases by working with people, closely working with people.
As you say it, and as I see it, there is a lot of work on women's hands also, right, to actually stem this out. And it's going to take everybody play their part to remove it, actually. So does you did address this, but there is a question again on the same lines. Do unconscious bias and stereotypes come from one gender or both genders,
Okay.
or other genders, or all genders? Yeah.
It comes from all. Okay. I don't think we can say that we are not biased as well. Okay, so we are definitely biased, and I can actually think of an incident which comes to my mind is I've heard one of during one of my parent teachers meet with my son's school. I was really surprised. We are very specific, especially at home, in not encouraging or even showing a slight bias towards gender. So the class teacher of my son, she said, "I've heard your son talking about this sport is a male sport. I don't want X or the female to participate. This they call Akka. They address the teacher as Akka. So Akka, this is a female sport. This is a male sport. Why do female participate?" So when this kind of a feedback comes to me, I was really shocked. Okay, so there could be instances where even people who really want to walk the talk are biased sometimes, and we should be very careful. So it is not coming from one gender; it is common to both. So we should be very careful in understanding and overcoming this.
That's an interesting anecdote there, Priya. So there's another question coming from your own experience, that as somebody who has been in a manufacturing industry, you broke stereotypes. How did you push for systemic change around ideas that were so new and unpopular?
Okay, so I would say breaking the stereotypes, it's honestly speaking, I come from an IT background. Okay, so unlike core manufacturing, though I have been part of the manufacturing tree, but the work always has been with IT, which is, I would say, a little easy compared to women who are actually in the core, working in the manufacturing core space. When it comes to me as well, as I said, there are many roles which were unconventional and gray, which people would really, think to take. But I should also say that the organization that I work for has actually been very, very, had very good policies for promoting women. And I didn't really feel that I had to really struggle a lot in terms of breaking the stereotypes to reach this level, to be honest. And there are areas where I have been very vocal in stating that, okay, we have to make certain policies flexible. We have to not be biased. We have to improve certain infrastructure facilities to make women and yes, there are few areas where inputs were given and it was taken as well. But I think the companies also play a lot of role in terms of having policies where the biases are not there, and having an environment which is safer for women to thrive, be there and develop is what I would say.
Great. So, so this is actually a very interesting question, which also leaves me wondering often. So sometimes certain well-meaning and well-intended remarks, such as "Oh, let her go home early, she has a kid," etc., can actually act as derailers or pauses in a women professional's career intentionality. How should women handle situations like these? So where is this balance?
Okay, so if you ask me, there is no one way or the other. It actually depends on the individual. I can answer if it was me, how would I handle it? I can politely say, sorry, I can actually handle this. There is no need for, I respect the concern that you have, but however, I think I can manage this. I've made arrangements, so there is no need for you to, give this leverage for me. And I've done that during several occasions as well. So you can be polite and refuse it. At times, I have also, wherever needed, you have to exercise your privilege as well. Okay, sometimes people take things for granted. So I have exercised my privilege where I say, so I cannot stay this long. It doesn't matter where it should not be related to gender as such. Okay, so if there are meetings where you have to sit for long hours, it is perfectly okay to say that, okay, even if people perceive just because female you're getting it. So I make a point saying that it is not female thing, but you have to respect time, and I have gotten out of the meeting several times as well. So it depends on the person and style, but you have to communicate. The key point is you cannot just keep quiet. Okay, and all the female, I would say that they do not want to be given; they want to earn it. Okay, so people really hate to say when it is a diversity position, right? So none of us really want to don't call it as a diversity position. Okay, so we want to be respected for our skills. We want to really respected for what value we bring on the table. Okay, so I think we have to bring our point across and in a way that is comfortable for each one of them.
Communicating itself becomes the change that we want to see, right? In that bit. So there is another question from Shweta here. So she asks, what is Saint-Gobain's initiatives for advancing women to the leadership position? So she's talking from the career advancement opportunities, which also has in the backdrop in across workplaces, there is a bit of a gender bias playing out there. So what does Saint-Gobain do to address it? Yeah.
Okay, so there are several initiatives. As Saint-Gobain is a business, though within India, we do have multiple business units within Saint-Gobain, and there are several initiatives that are being taken, and we are very serious about it, and we have specific goals, unlike the organizations, many organizations I've seen in the last decade, where people talk about diversity a lot, and if you don't measure it, nothing gets done. So, however, Saint-Gobain is pretty serious about the women progression, right, in terms of hiring. So we have specific goals for different business units, how to bring in women, first of all. And once we bring in women, what do we actually do in terms of making them, develop and progress into the career role. So which is development as well as retention. So hiring, development and retention. So there are goals at each of these levels, and we are taking several initiatives. Okay, we have Women Initiative Network that is formed, which is very active, and we're also having specific programs in terms of addressing when women go through a family way. And we also are looking at improving our infrastructure facilities, which are women friendly. And we are also looking at women returnship program. So there are several initiatives at different business unit levels, which is not just being said. We have just begun our journey in a very serious manner. And we want to also showcase women both internally and externally, as we are trying to bring in a lot of role models. So there are several initiatives that are happening across different business units. Okay, I'm sure that that in next few years we will be attaining the target that we have in terms of not just numbers or a check mark. People would be really able to feel this. So as I said in the beginning, this session is very apt because we have had multiple gender sensitization workshops this year across business units and different locations.
That's nice to know, Priya, because and you know what is happening now is, since you address the bias, gender bias, it's actually opening a Pandora's box of biases, because the next question is about benevolent bias, is when others make decisions pertaining to careers of women without even consulting them. For example, spouses making career choices, supervisors deciding not to offer a project to a women professional because she is expecting. And how should women actually handle these? I mean, yeah, you're trying to help me out, but you know, you're still not empowering me to make that choice. Let me take the decision. So how should we deal with it?
See, first of all, we should be very clear about our purpose. So this applies not just to women, okay? It applies to men as well. So we should be very clear on what we want. What is our purpose? What do we really want to do? Okay, what are our career goals? And we should be very vocal in terms of, so we have many ways of expressing it, either what I say, during the career discussion. We do have tools and very formal process in place within the company where you actually express. See, one of those things I can tell you, and you can be very specific in what you want to do. And I have always been very clear in terms of I do not want to move outside of India. Okay, though there would be lucrative opportunities for you. So it's important for you to express what you want to do. And if the career progression happens in a way that is not in line with your, what to say, with what you want to do, it is equally important for you to discuss that. Why is it not happening? Try to understand. And there are cases where you will have to take some lateral moves, and not always what you want to do will be the reality. But however, is it overall leading you to what you want to do is what you have to be very clear about. Once you are clear and you are able to communicate it clearly, and we should also be bold enough in saying no. And if somebody is going to make some decisions, you should say no. You will have a price. See, everything comes with a price. You have to pay price for even saying yes or no. So you have to be very clear. Are you ready to pay the price?
Nice.
And not repent later. So it's important to be very clear in what you want, communicating it and reiterating it, and make decisions for you. You have to make the decision. Okay, even at home, it holds good. Okay, so right from whether you right from your marriage, for your education. So don't allow others to make choice for you. Okay? So you be very clear in what you want to do and exercise it.
Very, very, very valid point there, Priya. So the other bias question that I got is the ageism. Ageism is again a bias, and it also somewhere looks like women. It impacts women more than it impacts men. So how to address that? That's again a subset of biases that we see in the workplace.
Okay, it's an interesting one. So when it comes to age, I have seen biases even in terms of when a youngster joins. Okay, and they're always perceived in terms of, okay, they'll be very jovial, not really serious about work. Okay, so to me, what is important is to, as a manager or within the organization, we have to be very clear in terms of what the role is, what are the goals. Okay, and we should really talk about the roles and goals associated to the person and skill sets. Do we have the person has the right skill set for this role, and this is the expectation. So if these are clear and reiterated, I think age doesn't come into picture at all. So that's something, it's easier said than done, but this question is very valid, and I've seen that not just for people who are older, but even for the younger generation, that's a bias. Okay, so when somebody comes in fairly fresh, so we can't expect more out of them. They'll be jolly, so they wouldn't be really serious. They wouldn't be able to understand. They expect a lot of flexibility, and when it comes to again women getting into the family way, we do have similar questions, and I've seen this come from my own team. Okay, so she's getting into the family way. Should I assign this project or not? Okay, said, come on, let her decide.
Ask her and see.
Understand? She comes back and says that I have a problem. You give me flexibility. Don't take decisions on behalf of somebody. So I would say yes, age comes, but however, as long as we are able to tie role to a skill set to the results, I think work should not, or age should not come into the way.
Great. So that brings us also to the last question. And somebody is asking you about and this new year is around the corner. So they want a new year advice for women colleagues and aspiring women employees about tackling unconscious gender bias. So what would be your two pieces of advice? Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, I'm very excited about the I would say the opportunities in front of us. Okay. So everybody talks about women empowerment, okay, gender diversity. Okay, there's a lot of opportunities in front of us. So the at least upcoming decades are going to be the women era. I think it's the thing is, the circle is actually it's revolving, and it's going to be on our side. It's going to be favoring us. Okay, so in this situation, I would request you to take up goals in your professional as well as personal life. Again, talk to yourself, understand what your purpose of life is. Okay, always associate with purpose of your life. Why are you here? What is important for you? Then take up one goal that is important and that you would like to really pursue with purpose, passion, and with your heart is what I would say. So it is going to be next 2 decades or more than that is going to be women's. So how you capitalize is completely in your hands.
Wow, that's a women's world that we are going to be seeing unfold in front of us. Thank you so much, Priya. And thank you so much for that optimistic note with which we have ended this discussion today. Thanks a lot for sharing this treasure trove of information that you have, as informed through your experience, through your lived experience, and through, the expertise that you have had in being in a bastion, which is considered a men's bastion. But as you also addressed that it was not hardcore manufacturing shop floor, but still you have had a ringside view of, what can be the scenario there. So thank you so much for sharing those experiences and insights with us. It was a pleasure having you with us on day 15 of Diversity Mahotsav.
Same here, Janani. Thank you, Janani, and thank you, Lakshmi, for having me. Thank you.
And with this, we come to an end to the 15th day of Diversity Mahotsav. Thank you for joining us today. You have been, as always, a wonderful audience. We would once again like to thank our featured partners, Kellogg Brown and Root Engineering and Construction India Private Limited and Saint Gobain India Private Limited. We have another exciting day planned for Friday, 23rd December, the finale of Diversity Mahotsav. So we'll have the keynote by Surekha Desai, Senior Vice President, Customer Operations, Head India Center for Care, Vodafone India Services Private Limited, a closing note by Dr. Soundarya Rajesh, Founder President, Avatar Group. And the results of Diversathon, which was held on December 21st, will be announced tomorrow. We had a great session of paper presentations by the education institutions yesterday. And we would also be having a befitting ending for this of a finale with a celebratory note with all these sessions lined up for you tomorrow. So do join us on 23rd of December, Friday, in between 4 to 5 p.m. Please visit www.myavatar.com to explore various opportunities and activities that celebrate diversity. If you have not registered at myavatar.com as yet, please do log on to myavatar.com and register now. Browse through to find jobs that might suit your skill sets, read articles of interest, upskill yourselves through various webinars conducted exclusively for you. Our social media hashtags for Diversity Mahotsav are hashtag Diversity Mahotsav 2022 and hashtag Celebrating Diversity. Do post your experiences at Diversity Mahotsav on your SM handles with these hashtags. As we draw close to the day, I am going to request you to take a couple of minutes and provide your feedback on today's session. Please bring up the feedback form. So we have some questions about today's session. So how would you rate today's session on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the minimum and 5 being the maximum? That is the first question. And how would you rate our speaker, Priya Vaidyanathan, on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 again being the minimum and 5 being the maximum. Is there anything else you wish the session covered in today's topic? Would you like to suggest a topic that you wish to hear from us during Diversity Mahotsav? If yes, please give us your suggestions in the box. What is your takeaway from today's session? So please do take some time and give us your feedback, because your feedback matters, and that's what enables us to put together a fantabulous session. While you fill your valuable feedback, let me reiterate the next session of Diversity Mahotsav that is coming up tomorrow, 23rd December, the 16th day of Diversity Mahotsav, the finale. We will be listening to Surekha Desai from Vodafone India. And we'll also have a closing note by Dr. Soundarya Rajesh, founder president Avatar Group. And we will have the results of Diversithon, where we saw paper presentations by educational institutions being announced. So please do join us tomorrow. You have been with us throughout the journey till today. We hope that you will also support us and watch us tomorrow to see how this beautiful episodes, these strings of episodes of Diversity Mahotsav will culminate tomorrow. With that, signing off today is Janani Sampath. Take care, mask up, and stay safe. See you.